Hello YouTube, today we're going to be doing a guitar lesson on chord scales once again, only this time we're going to be looking at 7th chords. So we'll be doing the same chord scales I've shown you in the other videos. Check them out if you're not familiar with them, it's absolutely worth looking at. Also worth looking at, my Patreon, I'm going to have the notes for this lesson in tab format, and this week I'll also be uploading another lesson on arpeggios, in which I'll also have the notes for on my Patreon page. Now, when you visit my Patreon, I'm not sure if you can still see if you're not a member, which is a little bit tricky, but there is a whole bunch of transcriptions. There's over 30 different posts now of lessons and all kinds of things, but there's Necromantics, Tiger Army, Reverend Horton Heat, Crewman, The Living End, Zombie Ghost Train, 6 Sinners, and of course more to come. So there are also lessons on some Rockabilly stuff as well, and there's going to be more of that to come. All the stuff I'm putting on YouTube now, I'm putting transcriptions on the Patreon, so check that out. And it's also a way that if you've been getting a lot out of these videos, you can support me a little bit, which is great. But yeah, no problem if you're still enjoying them, and commenting and liking, that's all helpful too. And one more thing, my album, The Homemade Space Machine, is out. That's basically like a sci-fi rockabilly album set in the 50s, but the 2050s. So I think you might enjoy that too if you're into this stuff. So please check it out. The Homemade Space Machine on pretty much every streaming platform, I believe. So anyway, getting into today's lesson, we did the chord scale from G, okay, and we've done it from C, just a basic major chord scale. And I explain how we come to the conclusion of utilizing major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, half diminished, etc. I explain all that in the other video, so if you want to go back and check that, now's probably the time to do it. But if not, it's all good, because these are going to be equally useful, even if you don't fully understand them. You're going to be able to get something out of them. So obviously we've got our G major. Okay, now the tones that we use, you may recall, is the root note, obviously, the 5th degree of the scale. Then we use the root note again, and then we use the 3rd in the 2nd octave. It comes out of the 2nd octave because we have the root note here, 1, 2, 3. Now on the guitar, we can't play every note at the same time because we'd be tripping over ourselves. So the B and the D are on the same string, B being the 3rd, D being the 5th. So yeah, we end up with these interesting voicings where we get like a 1, 5, 1, 3 up here. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to take that octave and we're going to replace it with the 7th degree of that chord, okay, from that scale. So we're in the key of G, so every chord that we go to, we're going to be working out of the key of G, but we're going to be taking the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th from that point, from each point that we're building the chord from, and you'll see how it relates. Anyway, it's getting too complicated. Let's just keep moving along. So 1, 5, octave, and there's the major 7. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually play the 5 with our pinky. We're going to play the major 7 here with the 2nd finger, and then the 3rd finger is going to play the 3rd. So we're going to get this chord. Now, you might be thinking, that's not really the sound I want when I'm playing a rockabilly. But that's not really the point today. It's more about understanding 7th chords, and then when you do use them, you'll have a better idea what you're doing. So, for example, I can tell you straight away, if you were playing a song in the key of G, you might actually choose to bend the rules a little bit and not use the major 7. We might use the flat 7, okay? So there's your major 7. There's your flat 7, okay? And this is like a forced, think of it as like a forced error almost, where okay? And that's what gives it that cool sound. It's because it's not the major 7 that it sounds interesting to our ears. But having said that, all these chords are useful, and if you're using them from different angles, let's say, and from beginning from different chords, you may choose to use a major 7 chord. Maybe you can use a major 7 chord just to be different and to find different sounds, okay? And that's the beauty of understanding this stuff. So that's our first chord, that's the major 7 chord. And if we flatten right across, we get the full chord like that. Now when we come up to the A, which is the next degree in the key of G, this time we're going to get a slightly different chord. We're going to get a minor 7 chord, whereas the last one was a major 7 chord. And that's because the notes that are in A minor 7 the notes that we take from G, okay, that we take from the key of G, when we put them against A, they have a darker sound. So the third degree we're going to get is the C, but we're going to play that up here. Okay, I've already explained all this stuff in the other one, so I should probably move a little quicker. You're probably getting bored. So, but what we're going to do is we're taking the notes out of G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, but we're going to split them up into the 1, the 3, the 5, and the 7th degree in this case is a flat 7 against A. I know it's a lot to take in, but this is how we build chords. When we build chords, we look at the new chord almost like as if we're looking at that note's key. So we're looking at the key of A, and we're comparing the notes that we get from G, and we can see we've had a lot of alterations. We've got a flat third instead of a major third. We've got a regular 5 and a flat 7. So this is our 7th degree now, and the way we play a minor chord, you might recall, was to play right across like that, just flat. To do the minor 7, we've got the octave here. We just need to release the pinky. Okay, and there's our minor 7 chord. This is a chord you will hear in a lot of rockabilly stuff. That, or you know, if you're great sound. So that one's definitely one that you know straight off the bat is going to have a familiar feel about it. Now that's at the 2nd degree of the key of G. So we've started from the A. Now we can sort of move along because we use that same voicing, the minor 7, up at the B. Okay. Then we use the major 7 at C. Again, the same one we played from G. Now this is probably the more interesting one here that I can talk a little bit more about. Is a D7. Okay. This is a D dominant 7. The dominant 7 chord, it's a little bit confusing. It's not the easiest to explain. So we can call this chord, okay, which is the, we're playing the 10th fret, 12th fret, 10th fret, 11th fret, 10, 10, as you'll see in the tab if you happen to grab the notes on this one. Okay, and we can just call that a D7. When we call it a D7, like not a major 7 or a minor 7, okay, we are actually specifying that we have a chord that utilizes a major third against the root note of the chord, so D with an F sharp. Okay, so that's a major relationship as opposed to a minor relationship. But the 7th degree is a minor relationship with that root note. Okay, when we get that combination, it's kind of not a major chord, not entirely a major chord, and it's definitely not a minor chord because we have the major third. So this chord was given the name the dominant 7, okay? And the reason it's called the dominant 7 is there's all these funny names for the steps of a scale, and the 5th one happens to be called the dominant. So you got like tonic, might be, I can't remember, sub-median, median, sub-dominant, dominant? That might be right actually. I could be wrong, but I can tell you that they have funny names, and the 5th degree is called the dominant, okay? I've forgotten those things because they just don't seem to be that important to me. So, but at this point here, it does kind of make sense to say, well, this chord got its name from those names because on the 5th step of any major scale, the chord that you will build if you use the 7th degree will be unique. It's a dominant 7. It's only built on the 5th degree of the major scale because all these other chords fit comfortably into a major or minor style, for lack of a better word. So just minor chords, major 7. Okay, and then this one rule unto itself a dominant 7. So that's got the 1. In theory, we've got the major third, the 5, and the flat 7. Okay, but of course, we're not playing the third here, we're playing it there. So, okay, so that's the story behind the dominant 7, which we can just call the 7 chord. So that's a D7 or a D dominant 7, and that's a really irritating fact if you ask me. I would have almost thought that we could have just called a G7 with a major 7. We could have just called that a G7, but no, we have to specify that it's major. Seems weird, but that's the way it is. So now we've got our dominant 7, then we've got E minor, E minor 7, same as the other minor 7s that we played. And of course we can play this up here like that. That's a great sounding chord. Okay, so that's just on the 2nd fret. Yeah, so or else 12, 14, 12, 12, 12. Just remember, we're releasing the root note. You may find it a little bit difficult to actually fret right across on some of these chords. I tend to use the back of my finger a little bit more, roll back a little. I find that's the sweet spot for me that catches that, especially the 4th string. And of course, try really hard not to block the 4th string with your 3rd finger. That can be a problem. You'll get this, and you're not playing a 7th chord anymore. Okay. So one more thing that I'd like to show you just quickly too with the minor 7 chords. You can take your pinky and add it to. So in this case, you'd be adding it for the A minor 7. You'd be adding it to the 8th fret. Okay. That's another way you can play a minor 7 chord, because that's the flat 7 against an A right there. There's a G, so 1. Okay, so you can do it there as well. So if you're having trouble getting the 7 there, or I should say the flat 7, you can put that up there, and that's a good sound. Cool sound. I dig that. So that is your chord scale with 7ths, but we've got one more to go, which was the minor 7 flat 5. Okay, so this let's just go back to the A minor, for example. We've got the minor 7 there, and we put the minor 3rd here. Okay, because if we tried to play the minor 3rd here, you'd lose your root note. So we put it there. Okay. When we do this up at the F sharp, our 5th degree would have been the C sharp, but this key doesn't use C sharp, it uses C natural. So I talked about this in the other one. Same rule applies. We can do this. All right, we'll play it also down the octave here. Here's the same note, the F sharp. We can put our flat 5, this is our 5, we can flatten it like that. But I prefer to take that note, put it up here. So it's a C in this case. Yeah. So that chord I talked a fair bit about in the other lesson as well. So I probably don't need to get too much into it. But essentially, it's the minor 7 chord, same way we did the A minor 7, but we can get rid of the 5 from here, and we're putting it up here as a flat 5. Okay, so we did it from A, we'd be doing this. But in this key, we're not doing that. All of these notes are still in G major. That's what makes that chord really interesting. Okay, and then we're back to here. So that's the root 6 version, and with all the theory going on there, we can do all this from a root 5 perspective as well, which takes us from the C major chord, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, or A minor, sorry, and then the B half diminished, and then the C. But this time, what we're doing, the root note again is the octave up there. We're replacing it with the 7. So in the key of C, that's going to look like this. We've got 3rd fret, 5th fret, 4th fret now, and 5th fret. We're going to play the 3rd up here. Okay, 1, 5. Okay, in terms of the tones, we've got the 1, the 5, the 7, and the 3. So there's a C major 7. And if you want, you can fret that too. So then we've got D minor 7. So we're lifting the pinky, and we're getting the flat 7 against the D there. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5. What was it? Sorry, 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5. In the key of C, we actually get a natural 6 there, and then the flat 7 there. So okay, and our minor 3rds up here. So we use the same voicing there, and we move it up 2 frets. We get our E minor 7. Then we use the same chord that we used for C major 7 up at the F here. Okay, and then we get to do the dominant 7 from G, because it's the 5th degree of C, the dominant degree, and this gives us this interesting chord that is the G, then the 5th degree is a D, F, which is a flat 7, B, which is the natural 3rd of the G. Okay, and those two notes together have a really interesting sound. A little bit of trivia too. The only key that you will see the 3rd degree and the flattened 7th degree of the dominant 7 chord. Okay, so in this case, the F and the B, the only key you'll see an F and a B played together is the key of C. In the key of G, the only time that's the only key, that you will see a C and an F sharp, okay, together, which is the two key notes out of a D7. So your fifth degree sort of harnesses two notes that is completely unique, or that are completely unique to that key. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So that's another reason that the dominant 7 chord, or it's a reason why that chord returns home really nicely. We get that. All right, so that's why in a blues, for example, the last chord before we return back to the start, it's nearly always that dominant 7 chord, because it very much stipulates the key to your ears, whether you know it or not, which is crazy. It's bizarre. Okay, so again, that's 10, 12, 10, 12. Play the 10 there by barring. I use my third and pinky for this. Again, get a nice firm grip on that first finger. Okay, now we're up at A minor 7. Same minor 7 voicing as the D minor and the E minor. Okay. Or we can play it with open strings. Great sound. And then our B half diminished, okay, which is... Again, I talked about that in the other chord scale lesson, but just for the record, 2, and I flatten my finger, but then I play the 3rd fret on the 4th string, and then my first finger is now barring to capture the 2nd fret on the 3rd string. See, it's hard. And then my 3rd finger is playing the 3rd fret on the 2nd string, and that's my root 5 half diminished. Don't play the 6th string or the 1st string for this chord. Unless you want some trouble. Okay, so there you go. That's the whole root 5 and root 6 chord scales with the 7s now explained in probably more detail than you needed, but probably better to have more detail than less. Okay. One thing that you can do that's going to sound really cool with this, again, relative minor. Okay, so the relative minor of either of those chord scales is the 6th degree. And the other thing I'm going to jump around, hang on. Let's stick with one thought at a time, Adrian. Okay, so the 6th degree of G, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is E. So if you want to write a nice progression that's dark sounding, start from the 6th degree, use that minor 7, so we could use the, would be here. I would probably use an E minor 7, but then just a regular G. So for example, if I was going to use those two chords. That's such a cool sound. I'm probably going to write a song after this now, just from those two chords. You can steal that if you like. But that's why I like doing these progressions. You get a lot of ideas out of them. And learning these things. So that was the relative minor of G. If we did the relative minor of C, it would be A. 1. Remember, you always count your 1st degree 1. You don't go from here and go 1 like that. It's C is the 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's A. So I might start there because I don't feel like it's practical to play a minor 7 there. Again, I find major 7s can be a little cheesy. Major 7s. Did I say minor 7s? Major 7s can be a little cheesy, so I might just use a regular C chord. Or, actually, maybe it doesn't sound too bad in C. Just do then, I actually used G major, that's in the key of C, we were just playing it up there before as a dominant 7. Then I used E minor 7 here. You're probably thinking, hang on, you're using the ones from G. No, when we did all these chords, of course you can use root 6 versions. Like here's an E minor 7, could use the same E minor 7 we're using from low down in the key of G. These root 5 and root 6 movements, they're not exclusive. Obviously, all the chords that we play on the 5th string, if we can play them on a lower string, you might as well. And likewise, if your root 6 major is the G, and we're working up here, we don't have to go all the way up the neck start using the root 5 versions of these chords. Okay, so if we hit C, for example, and we don't want to keep going up the neck, why not just go to a D7 here? Alright. Now again, I've explained all that stuff in the other videos, but I like to go over it. You know, I think of you guys as all of my students and how I'd probably beat you over the head with some of the same information week after week or lesson after lesson, just to help drill it in and give you more tools to use it. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. That's everything that I wanted to talk about today in terms of the 7th chords. And of course, you don't have to do anything that I'm saying. You can start from any chord in those cycles and make up your own progressions and get creative. Just experiment, play around, try and find things that you like. You don't even have to use chords from the one key. The last lesson I made, I talk about breaking the rules, and you can do that however you like. You could, so I'm using that major 7, and then I'm playing, you know, a B flat major 7. Why? Because I felt like it. So muck around, don't feel like you're stuck with any of these rules. Have anything they're fun to play around with. At least when you do, you kind of know what you're doing in an ironic way. Thanks for watching. Check out the Patreon, check out the Homemade Space Machine. Please give me some feedback and keep your eyes peeled. There's another video coming out this week on arpeggios. Thanks for watching. See you guys later.